After yesterday's defensive debuts, I'm more confident in the season ahead. I think there'll be a few clean sheets, still need some depth though. Look, I think it's wrong not to get a midfielder. I have to put that out there into the world. Like, I do think it's wrong for Liverpool not to go out and get a defensive midfielder. And I do think it will impact us in the season. But, you know, I don't want to just come on and shout and moan all the time because it's not really going to help at this point. I just want to get on the record that I agree with you all, that we are still short of right back, in my opinion. We are still going to be short of DM. And there's another part of this that I've got to be honest about as well. I don't like the time frame of this. I don't like how long it's taken. And I don't like that, again, here we are in another saga in a transfer window. Because I want a manager to have the best chance to start on the right foot and get off to a good start. And he isn't getting the players in early enough. And that's not on him, that's not on you, that's not on me, that's on the recruitment team. So they haven't done their jobs well enough. I've been pretty vocal about that all summer. And the fears that we had at the very start of the summer about going into the season a little bit underprepared are probably going to come true. So then after that, it's a case of, what do, you know? Do you hope for the best? Or do we see the wheels coming off at some point? Now, to get back to what Daniel said defensively, that certainly yesterday made me... I mean, it calmed a few nerves, Daniel. I agree with you on that. I mean, Jeremy Jacquet, so much impressed me about him. And I know it's only 45 minutes, but his confidence, his organisation skills, and the fact that, you know, he got up and got himself on the score sheet and made some good recovery challenges, I liked it. But what impressed me about Araujo as well was you could see his reading of the game. You could see it. You could see he knew where to be. He knew what passing channels to block. He knew where to come in to intercept. And as they get repetition playing together more, I do think, it's looking good. It really is. Like, I didn't know what to expect from Jacquet because I wouldn't be somebody that hugely followed his career over in France. But my goodness, I was impressed yesterday as a fan when he played. And, you know, he could be, dare I say it, Virgil van Dijk 2.0 at the levels. Like, he looks so polished and so confident. Michael, how are you? Michael said, hey Craig, the net spend is going to be more than last season. Surely we're going to start seeing some outgoings before we see any more incomings. Thank you for all the great work. So at the minute, our outgoings about, about 95 million. And I think we brought in 700 grand or something like that. So at the minute, our outgoings is about that. Now, if you throw in, and I don't know the number, so let's just put it out there as a guess at, let's say £165 million for Barcola and Mbaye, and that is a guesstimation number. So if you add that in, then you've got what? 160, 250 million quid, give or take, minus the money you get in for Curtis Jones, which would be about 30, minus the money you get in for Gakpo. So you're still on a net spending at around 150 grand. Or million, sorry, 150 million, which would be pretty much where we were last summer. But it doesn't seem as exciting a window because we haven't had the sheer amount of volume of transfers. But there's no getting away from it. If we end up with Barcola and Mbaye, that's great, but it isn't enough. We still need a DM, we still need a right back. And the situation around Alisson concerns me, and I'll get into that in a little bit as well. Not because I don't think Alisson's good enough. It's more a case of what nearly happened. It's JB said 120 for Barcola, 45 for Mbaye. Slightly, I tweak it a little bit, but I am guessing. I would guess 125 all in for Barcola. And maybe, like, where I struggle with this, and again, I don't have the intel, but where I struggle with this is, we know what the number was that they were negotiating with Leverkusen. So the world kind of knew what the asking price was. And it was somewhere between 40 and 50 million euro when they were negotiating with Leverkusen for Mbaye. So they can't really turn around now and start asking for stupid money. So, you know, I do think they'll work that one out because it seems like you've got a willing seller for both of these guys. So yeah, I guess about 125 and 40 in pounds, but I am guessing on the transfer fees. We're undermining the risk of signings for an unproven manager and signing everything he wants. Still needs to prove something, not like he's Pep. So we're undermining the risk of signings for an unproven manager. I don't really know where to go with that, mate, because like how do we say unproven? He's the Liverpool manager. That's the way I look at it. And the Liverpool manager should be backed, right? Because if you've any doubts about him being in the job, you shouldn't have appointed him. So you can't then appoint him and not back him. So I don't think any of this has to do with them not believing or waiting to see if they believe in him. And this is why, again, we go back to the sporting director role and why this is really important. Because this it isn't, nor should it be, on Iriola to build out the squad. That's the sporting director's role. Iriola is a head coach, not a manager. So yes, he will have an input on the style of player he'd like and what attributes they need. And of course, he'll speak with potential incomings. But the sporting director is the one that set out the football philosophy from the ground up. So it's actually him that we should be talking about with transfers and not what Iriola wants. Because yes, Iriola will be involved in the process to some extent, but it's the sporting director that does these things. And that's the whole point of his role. A sporting director is supposed to be there to make sure that things go smoothly if you need to change head coach. And the philosophy of the club doesn't change and the style of football doesn't change. So I don't think it's anything to do with anything other than FSG are cheap. And I keep coming back to that, mate, because I don't even want to entertain the idea that they've appointed a manager that they don't think is good enough. What's the point of that? And I don't think that they would go in with that mindset. And to call Iriola unproven, I think, I get where you're coming from some extent, because yes, he hasn't managed in the Champions League, but he has built up to this point in his career. And he is somebody highly regarded within the game. And we do have experience of what his teams are like in the Premier League, what type of way he sets up and how hard they were to play against. So, yeah, I don't think that's it, to be honest, mate. I don't think it's nothing to do with the fact that we're just not thinking about the manager being a new manager. No, these are positions that we need to solve regardless. And like I said, they ripped up Salah's contract. So, what about Subamendi? We were in for him before. I've no idea, Paul. Not got a clue. I think Arsenal could be open to selling him. Again, not sure they'd sell to us, but I don't know about midfield. All I know is that as a fan, like all of you guys, I want a DM. But to hear David Lynch say that, because he would have people he speaks to within the club, he formerly worked at Liverpool Football Club, so he knows people inside the clubs. And to see him on Anfield Index, he's pretty much at 0% is what he's hearing, chance of a DM. Now, I don't know where else to go with that, because I don't have anything that I can add to the conversation. And if he's hearing that, it doesn't mean that it's definitive, because of course things could change. But I did warn you guys the other day that it would be very unusual for FSG to put in this level of output in a window without looking to recoup more money. And that's where I thought this might all fall down a little bit. Because if we were to bring in Wharton, they're not really going to be able to offset that. And that's why I kept saying to you, they were probably expecting that McAllister offer to come in, but it never became forthcoming. So this is my opinion, is probably why we don't see a DM being brought in, because the club didn't get the sale that they were expecting. And that is me guessing, but that's the way I read the situation. LFC Forever said, love the Iriola appointment, don't get me wrong. Just highlighting there's an inherent risk when signing a manager like him and splurging at the same time. But I think when you talk about splurging or spending, you have to spend for the future anyway. You have to spend for whoever's going to be in charge. And this is why we have a difference between a sporting director and a head coach or a manager. So, for me, everything falls on the owner's feet when it comes to recruitment and stuff like that, because ultimately they're the ones with the purse strings. They're the ones who make these appointments. And we can all see that Richard Hughes hasn't done his job well enough. We've seen it over multiple windows, but, it seems like to be a bit of a clearing of the guard in a few months when the new investors get their feet in under the table and maybe change things up a little bit. We're going to see new appointment made of a sporting director anyway.